Welcome to Aligned Impact, the podcast where conscious leadership meets bold entrepreneurship. I'm your host, Summer Huntington, and each week we dive deep with founders, innovators, and thought leaders who are rewriting the rules of business from the inside out. Here we talk mindset, brand, content, culture, the real stuff behind building a legacy-driven business that doesn't burn you out. No filters, no fluff, just real conversations that inspire aligned action and intentional impact. If you're a visionary leader ready to create with purpose, grow with integrity, and lead with your heart, you're in the right place. Let's get into it. What outdated paradigms around health or self-care do you think we need to release collectively to move forward in true well-being?
I think for me, again, this comes back to reclaiming our individuality while appreciating and leaning into the value of community. And this is really something that has been true for me, that I see is true for so many of my clients, is really finding that balance between acknowledging who we are, acknowledging our unique gifts that we bring to the world, our unique frequency that we bring to the world.
I'd love to welcome Kat White of Nourished Roots Health to Aligned Impact Podcast. Thank you so much, Kat, for being here. I'm so excited to dive into your work.
Yeah, me too. Thank you so much for having me.
So I recently met Kat online, as I do in this field, and found out that she is a breathwork facilitator, and she's actually in the neighboring town, which is amazing. And I just want to get right into a little bit about your work and kind of telling us a little bit of the backstory of how you got into doing this work, if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So you wear many hats. You're a holistic coach, you're a breathwork facilitator, you're an astrologer, you're a scientist. How do all of these roles weave together into the bigger vision of Nourished Roots Health?
Yeah, great question. So like you said, I do wear a lot of different hats. That's one of my superpowers, but also one of my, things that I need to keep an eye on because I have so many different interests. But I think for me, I started out as a marine biologist. So that's actually my background. I have a master's in marine biology. And that was originally what I moved here to the Pacific Northwest to do, was marine biology research. And I'm still doing that to this day. And one of the other things that I've always been passionate about is health and wellness. And in 2020, like many of us, I had some extra space and really found myself wanting to dive deeper into that world, into that realm, and to support other people in finding what true health and well-being meant for them. And so I think for me, with all of the different aspects of my work, the theme and the sort of through line for me is always coming back to what is true for you in terms of your unique well-being, what nourishes you the most. And for all of us, that's different. And for all of us, that is multifaceted, right? So I think for me, blending all of these different passions and interests and certifications that I have is really the best way that I can support individuals in finding their unique path to health. And I can support them in so many different ways by having that really varied background that I have and hold.
Can you dive into a bit of your breathwork facilitation? I know you host some in-person and some virtual communities. I'm personally very fascinated with breathwork and really see it as the most prominent tool for identity work and shifting into your next level self. So yeah, fill us in just so our listeners have a framework for the work that you do, and specifically in the breath work when you put the breathwork hat on.
Yeah, absolutely. So right now I offer community breathwork classes. So I teach at a couple different yoga studios here in my area. And in those sessions, we're doing a lot of pranayama inspired rhythmic breathing to music. Music is a huge part of my breathwork practice. And we're really dropping in together to go on a journey in community together through the breath to really drop in. And every single one of those has a different theme. We work with different breathwork practices every time. So it's a little bit different than a lot of other breathwork sessions that folks may go to where we're using the same breathwork practice each time. In these classes, we're using a variety of those. And then I also work with individuals one-on-one and in small groups too, to dive deeper into their unique breath, their unique patterns, rewriting the narratives that they are specifically struggling with and really desiring to evolve through in that moment.
Love it. I've been listening to some audio meditations through a course that I'm doing that I know we have a similar background. You take a similar course in breath work, and it is just like changing my world. Like it feels like a psychedelic experience. And I'm like, that was a 15-minute breath session. Like what just happened? So I'm curious, like what lights you up? What are you excited about in facilitating in your breathwork journeys right now?
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly the response that we want as facilitators, right? Is for folks to go through our journeys and have that psychedelic experience, have that feeling of really connecting back into their higher self and their soul. And so for me, I love to guide. I love to support folks in the moment during the journey. I find that when I'm in session with people, I do a lot of channeling. There's a lot of things that come through in session that are designed specifically for the people, whether it's virtual or in person, that is specific to those individuals. And so for me, I love to just guide and support people through that vision and hold space. You know, that's really one of my titles that I hold on to as a sacred space holder. And I really love that process of witnessing people as they move through the breath, as they discover the power of the breath for themselves. And of course, you know, hearing their experience after and processing with them after as well through that integration. But yeah, I mean, honestly, hosting breathwork, facilitating breathwork is such a gift. And it is truly like the highlight of my day, my week, whenever I get to host a breathwork session.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think what I've noticed is we've always been seeking a state of altered consciousness throughout history, you know, through dance, through, you know, the trance that you get into dancing around the fire, or, you know, through meditation, all these ancient practices. And so I think right now our communities and the culture that I live in the US are very hungry for that altered state of consciousness in a safe place with a skilled facilitator such as yourself.
Yeah.
So walk us through, what does a day in your world look like right now? And how do you personally practice what you teach around the idea of nourishment, embodiment, alignment, and obviously breath work?
Yeah, great question. My life is very full right now, which I'm very fortunate to say. So again, like I said, I'm still doing marine biology work as well. So right now, a typical day, I'm usually blending working in my business and also working in the nonprofit that I work with for that work too. So, um, you know, a lot of times it looks like getting up. I actually do breath work every single morning. So that's part of how I stay nourished for myself. That's how part of what allows me to show up and wear the many hats that I do. So first thing in the morning for me is always 100% of the time breath work. Um, the time amount varies, you know, sometimes it's 5 minutes, sometimes it's half an hour, just really depends on the day. But that is my non-negotiable, always grounding into the breath first and foremost every single day. I also love a good card pull. So I usually work with an oracle deck first thing in the morning as well, and just kind of tap into the energy. And then really just moving forward, it looks like, you know, nourishing breakfast and then getting into work. So whatever that looks like in that day, that could be holding space for a one-on-one client. That could be prepping for my next breathwork session, checking in with current clients and things like that. Sometimes it looks like going out and doing field work for my nonprofit work, and doing what I need to do to continue to support that process as well. So it's kind of a lot of like jumping back and forth between tasks for me, and really coming back to the breath as my grounding throughout the entire day. And then my rule is typically, unless I'm hosting a breathwork session, evenings are always clear. That's really something that's important to me. And being able to spend time with my husband, being able to spend time just grounding and coming back to myself, and switching off the work hat at a certain time of day is really been helpful for me in kind of maintaining those healthy boundaries.
Yeah, I definitely am in line with that. I live out in a cabin out where we have very bad Wi-Fi. And so luckily I get to leave all my work in town at my little commercial office. And then when I come home, it's like home time, which I think having an evening to kind of wind down is very key as a multi-passionate entrepreneur. Can you walk us through the kind of transformation your clients experience when working with you, and also share a little bit about the most common struggles you're seeing women navigating right now when it comes to, radical well-being?
Yeah. So I think what would make sense is let me start with the second part of your question, because that will lead into the transformation that they're experiencing too. So right now, one of the biggest things that I'm seeing is really just overwhelm. There's so many people that are coming to me that are like, look, I want to do something, I want to change things, but I don't know how. I'm just overwhelmed with how many things and options there are. And so that's a big one, is just overwhelmed with everything going on in the world, but also just the amount of different modalities available to them. And then secondly, I would say is one of the things that they're really looking for that I'm seeing right now is just that deep emotional healing, that being able to come back into connection with self. I think now more than ever, we are collectively remembering how important it is to come back to ourselves, to remember who we are as individuals and tap into our unique essence and power. And that's really something that I'm seeing is people kind of having that awareness shift of it's not enough to just go do XYZ in my day. I need to feel like me and I want to start thriving again. And I haven't been. So, really, just having that awareness shift has been a big theme recently. And so, when I work with clients, that is really the transformation that we go through is going from that place of feeling stuck or stagnant or overwhelmed or just kind of oppressed in some way by the amount of conditioning that they are experiencing, and really getting through to the root underlying cause of why. And through the breath, we can do that so much quicker, right? As you know, and really allowing the breath to be that bridge between the mind, body, spirit, soul, and allowing the breath to kind of release and clear a lot of that stuff and those layers that they might be holding, so that they can come back to feeling more aligned, feeling more empowered, feeling more clear, releasing health issues that they've been struggling with for years. I've had multiple clients who come back to me and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I'm getting such good sleep. Like I'm feeling like the 10x version of myself. I have so much energy. I want to eat more healthy now because I feel like I'm nourishing myself." So it really is, creating this shift between where you are now and actually getting back to who you truly are, but in the process, stripping away all those layers that have been keeping you from seeing that within yourself. So I really consider the transformation that I offer is like giving you a road back to who you truly are and then amplifying that for you and helping you expand more into that energy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I kind of want to geek out a little bit on the science of this, since we got a biologist on the podcast, if
Yeah.
you're open to it. Okay, cool. So for our listeners, what Kat just described is basically when I'm just going to just like ask you, and then you can like correct me and kind of like school me a little bit. So person comes in, they're super overwhelmed. They're in a beta brainwave state, which is basically an overactive prefrontal cortex, our analytical mind. And so when we live there and we exist there, and our frequency is literally to be in that beta brainwave state, we get to find somebody like you as a breathwork facilitator to bring us into alpha and theta to help us tap into the next version of ourselves. And I'm specialized in getting people into gamma brainwave state, which is like the flow state. But yeah, I'm super curious. Do you study like the brain waves or anything like that, or like kind of the neuroscience of the brain as well?
I do. I'm a total bio nerd and I love to learn. I am a lifelong learner, truly. So yes, I love all of the neuroscience piece and all of the connection in with the nervous system, right? Like the physical effects of breath work are incredible. And I think that's really powerful too, because I think having some awareness of some of the more scientific background really helps explain things to folks when they are curious about breath work. If they've never done breath work before, when you have a little bit more of the science behind it that you can share with them, it gives them another avenue in to be able to not only trust the modality, but understand what's happening in their own body, which is actually really important to me. I think it's really vital that folks understand what is going on within them when they're experiencing these things and be able to take ownership of that.
Absolutely. And I will be signing up for your next breathwork session at the Bow Sanctuary, which happens to be like right in between our two towns, which is like pretty cosmic that that is just super aligned. All right. So can you we'll switch gears a little bit here. So you bridge the gap between science and spirituality from biology to Ayurveda to energetics. What shifts are you seeing in the wellness world when it comes to integrating these two worlds?
I love that question. Honestly, I'm seeing a massive shift toward more of that. I think really something that I'm noticing a lot in this space is people are much more open to recognizing that there's multiple different facets at work in everything we do, right? And I think now more than ever, there is more of an open-mindedness toward combining modalities and seeing that in a lot of ways, these are just different ways to get to the same endpoint. And when we can actually combine them, we can collapse time and move quicker toward that endpoint that we all desire to get to anyway. So I think right now it's a really exciting time to be in this space and to see more of that combining of modalities and the cross section. And I think just the walls between science and spirituality are breaking down also is what I'm seeing, right? There's a lot more acceptance and a lot more scientific proof for the spiritual and energetic effects that we are seeing in the world. So I think it's a really exciting time and a time where these two worlds are collapsing into one, which is exciting.
Yeah, just 4 or 5 years ago, somatics was kind of like an unknown term. And now I feel like the words nervous system regulation and somatics are super mainstream. And then I've been using in my cohorts the term down regulation quite a bit, just like, oh, I'm doing a down regulation practice. And so I'm just seeing more and more people are seeing the value of true down regulation because we do live in this kind of amped up, go, 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 rewarding performance, addicted to momentum society, which we get rewarded for that energy, but it does ultimately lead to disconnection with self and overwhelm. All right. So breathwork, somatic healing, and nervous system regulation have become huge in the last few years, as I mentioned. From your lens, how has the conversation around healing evolved since you first began this work?
Beautiful question. Yeah. I mean, I've been working in this space formally under the banner of Nourish Roots Health since 2021. So we've gone through quite a few shifts and changes already. And I think for me, something that I've really noticed just in the last year, maybe two, is a shift toward body-based healing. I think when I first started in this space, it was still very mental. It was still very much about, achieving that meditative state in the mind, right? Which is beautiful. But what I've started to notice is there's a big emphasis now on really coming back into the body as the basis of and the foundation of that healing point. And so again, speaking to the massive soar in breathwork and somatics, I think that's why is we're recognizing that, like, just as I spoke about with combining modalities, we're starting to acknowledge that we are more than just a mind, we are more than just a body, and actually all of these pieces and parts are connected. And it's vital to actually address any issues that are underlying in both the body, the mind, and the spirit, right? The emotional body as well. So I think that's really one of the biggest shifts that I've seen is a shift toward acknowledging that we hold energy in the body, that needs to be addressed, and that can manifest into health issues or chronic health issues, and really a push toward addressing that in the physical body as a way to clear out all of the other bodies, which I love. Is beautiful.
As you say this, it reminds me of the first 30 podcasts I did for Aligned Impact were with mental health practitioners, basically like psychotherapists, and similar trends in the mental health field where, the original, psychotherapy was like a top-down approach from the brain down to the body. And now most clinicians have switched over to the bottom-up approach, which is like body first, somatics first, as a gateway to shift mindset. So it's cool to hear you kind of mirror that as well in your work as a more of like a body-led facilitator. How are these evolving trends shaping the way you run your business or the kind of offerings that you create in your business at Nourish Roots Health?
Yeah, great question. I mean, I think the one benefit that I have is that my my business is quite body based already. So in a lot of ways, it's just really amplifying what I'm already doing, which is exciting. But I think for me, seeing the shift toward that combination of modalities is really something that I'm leaning into. That's something that I believe in strongly, right? Is having multiple tools in your tool belt, but also taking the best parts of all of these beautiful modalities available to us and combining them in ways that are really palatable and manageable for folks to receive. So rather than just overwhelming them with like 12 different systems, being able to create space where they can tap into and receive the benefits of all of those without having to necessarily understand the inner workings of every single one of them. So I think for me, it's really, in some ways, just like given me permission to do more of what I'm doing, which is kind of fun.
Yeah, I think simplicity, like keep it simple. You come to a breathwork journey, it's like, we know what we're getting. We're going to be having a psychedelic experience with Kat and get into the body and be able to transition to our next state of consciousness.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think as practitioners, it sometimes can be exciting to try to put everything, like all 12 modalities into one experience. But really, it's like people get a lot from going deep with like just a couple modalities at a time.
Yeah, 100%.
All right, this is kind of a tricky question here, and you may or may not have an answer, but I'm just going to throw it out. We'll just see whatever downloads or channels you get. Feel free to just speak your heart or speak your body mind. What outdated paradigms around health or self-care do you think we need to release collectively to move forward in true well-being?
Beautiful question. I love that. I think for me, again, this comes back to reclaiming our individuality while appreciating and leaning into the value of community. And this is really something that has been true for me, that I see is true for so many of my clients, is really finding that balance between acknowledging who we are, acknowledging our unique gifts that we bring to the world, our unique frequency that we bring to the world, and also recognizing that that is part of a larger whole. And that when we actually can work together in community and support one another in community, that is when we actually get to amplify all of our energies to raise the vibration of consciousness of the world, right? And so to me, I think that's one of the biggest things that has been on my heart, is really supporting people in coming back and reclaiming who they are at their core and stripping away those layers and really getting back to what they are here to do, what their unique essence is, how they can support themselves, and then taking that out into the world and shining their light out into the world as the person that they are meant to be, as the being that they are here to be in the world and in community.
I get chills as you're saying that. And it just reminds me, like, a big reason why we do this work is to help people self-actualize so they can shine their light out into the world. And then that's how we heal collectively, is to have everyone shining at their light instead of dimming their light and isolating and like doing things alone and continuing to go down the overwhelm rabbit hole. That, we've got to pull people out one at a time, one breathwork session at a time.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So in your business, what feels really aligned and expansive for you right now? And on the flip side, what's been challenging or stretching your growth edge lately?
Juicy question. Fun. I think what's been really exciting is being able to hold space for more one-on-one clients recently and really expanding my practice. I am kind of at a growth edge in my business. And so really playing in that and feeling into that and allowing it to be very heart-centered and very heart-led has been really, really fun for me and different in a lot of ways from my more kind of academic background. So that's really been exciting and a beautiful place to play in and explore. And I think on the flip side, that's also kind of been my growth edge, is feeling into the pieces and parts of my business that perhaps are no longer aligned, that need to evolve, that need to shift, and creating more space for that and allowing more space for that so that I can show up as my fullest self, right? And that I can show up and support people in the way that I know that I'm here to do. So it's kind of the same answer to the question, I guess. It's like the growth and expansion is exciting, but also that's the challenge, right? Is creating space for that. And again, rejiggling my schedule a little bit at times to manage all the pieces and parts and figuring out what that new balance looks like for me moving forward.
Totally. Yeah. I'm seeing a huge shift right now. I mentor a lot of yoga teachers to expand in the online space, and the same idea of like community building in actual like in-person sessions or in-person events are now coming in, or have been coming into the online space. And it's like, we can still have access to that ecstasis, like group flow state energy of being with a room full of people in a Zoom room or like a facilitated experience. It's wild. But yeah, I definitely am excited for just to see what you continue to involve your work into.
Yeah, thank you.
Speaking of, do you have any like group cohorts coming up that you want to shout out or anything like that? Or just events and offerings? Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not sure when this will go live, but I am hosting a virtual breathwork session at the end of this month,
Nice.
kind of all around embracing the shadow and really kind of leaning into this shadow season that we are in right now and tapping into our breath. And this is going to be a little bit of a deeper journey. So if all of what we've been talking about is exciting for people, I would love to support them and lead them through that session as well. But yes, I will also be opening up a group program probably later November. So actually now is a really good time to get into my world because I'll be starting to share about that probably in the next few weeks. And that will be a virtual program, but we'll be doing a lot of breath work. We'll be doing a lot of somatic work. We'll also be diving more into the energetic realm and tapping into a little bit more of the astrology, which is something that I also love to share about and really informs breath work in a beautiful way when you combine the two. So yes, stay tuned for that. I have more details coming soon, but yeah, that'll be coming probably late November.
Awesome. And your website and Instagram, if people do want to follow you in either of those spots?
Yeah. So my website is nourishedrootshealth.com, all one word. And you can find me on Instagram and Facebook at Nourished Roots Health. Instagram is where I'm more active. So definitely recommend hitting me up on there and I would love to connect.
Amazing. And we'll drop those in the show notes as well, but it's always good if people want to go like find it right now. Okay, so a couple more questions and we'll wrap it up. How do you personally stay grounded and nourished while holding space for others in such a deep emotional capacity?
Yeah. And this is such an integral part of being a facilitator, right? Is having those personal practices so that you can hold the space. So I think a big one for me, like I already shared, is a daily breathwork practice. That is kind of my true north. That is really what grounds me, that grounds my energy. It allows me to be the best version of myself every time. And so whether I am holding space for somebody in a one-on-one, whether I am leading a group breathwork session, whether I'm just going about my day, that is really my anchor that allows me to show up with presence, with intentionality, and be able to get out of my own way to hold space for others in a really safe and supportive way. I think the other for me is really having and creating those healthy boundaries, right? As we kind of already spoke about, like I said, I have my kind of evening rule as much as I can, creating those pockets of space that are for me to pour back into myself. And that is something that's taken me a really, really long time to learn how to do. But that truly is such a game changer for, again, being able to show up with that presence, to be able to hold that space intentionally and support others through those big emotional experiences and be centered and grounded for myself. I'm also really fastidious about doing energetic work before and after sessions. So that's another big part, is really creating that safe energetic circle before we begin, and then also cleansing the energy and clearing myself of any energy once we wrap up too. That's a really, like, again, non-negotiable part of my practice and my containers.
Awesome. Yeah, I did womb healing work for a bit, and that work has been pretty powerful, and had an instance where I didn't do the protection before and after, and like had a huge energy transmission. So now I'm just like, never will I forget to prep before, prep after. Super important. Okay, so I lied. We're not wrapping it up because we have to go into boundaries. So you said, yeah, so boundaries, that word just stands out to me because I see a lot of women when they are wanting to transition to elevating their consciousness, or just being more in a state of healing trauma, or, really prioritizing self-care, the boundaries piece is so huge. Talk to us about just your take on, how do you educate your clients around boundaries, but also how do you facilitate a somatic container where they can actually shift the boundaries on a somatic level in the body?
Yeah, beautiful. So for me, I mean, it's a lot about informing, right? Just communicating. I try to be really clear with everybody when I open containers, when folks are interested in my containers. I try to be very clear about what my boundaries are in a loving and respectful way. And I think that's really just the biggest thing. I think as women, we're often very afraid to express our boundaries because we worry that, oh, maybe they won't like me, or maybe they won't buy this thing that I'm selling, whatever it might be. And what I found is the more that you communicate boundaries in a loving and healthy way, the more people actually are excited to be in your space. And that actually then begins to transfer them, and it gives them permission to start to do the same in their lives. And so what I've actually noticed is the more that I communicate and hold my own healthy boundaries, the more my clients are empowered to do that in their life. And all of a sudden they're coming to me and saying like, hey, I held this boundary with my boss last week, and you inspired me to do that because of the way you hold this space. So it's so interesting how much of a ripple effect we can have just by doing the work ourselves, and then leading in that work and actually showing up and doing it ourselves. And I think that is, there are multiple practices that I share within my containers to support them in holding those boundaries. And again, some of them are breath-based, right? We're just really, even just before making a decision or before saying yes to something, just pausing and taking that deep breath and going inward and checking in with your physical body and saying, is this a yes? Or am I doing this because I feel obligated, or because it's a knee-jerk reaction? And just really just having that body awareness around decision making has been pivotal for a lot of my clients, because they're not used to doing that. They're not used to, and they're not encouraged in a lot of our societal norms, right, to stop and allow themselves to filter that decision through their body. And so the more we can build that connection and awareness of our body and how our body responds, the more we can begin to make those empowered decisions and hold those healthy boundaries and support ourselves.
Absolutely. I definitely concur with your modeling it for your clients, and the people that do want to build healthy boundaries will absolutely respect that and love that. And then the people that lack boundaries, what I found from my own personal experience, there's a little saying, if my boundaries make you uncomfortable, that means they're working. There'll be kickback from people that are like, no, I'm used to having that access, or I'm used to like crossing a boundary. And then they'll be like, nope, here's the boundary. It's here. And then you'll lose those people. Those people will no longer be magnetized to work with you, which is awesome. I love that.
Yeah. It's not like exactly. It's not like that good kind of attrition, right? Of whoever's not actually designed to work with you or going to be supportive and supported in your space. That's great. I'm sure there's somebody else for you.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's been a really good filtering process. Last question. What qualities or skills do you believe will be essential for the next generation of healers, coaches, and breathwork practitioners to truly thrive and lead with integrity?
That's a beautiful question. I think what first comes to mind is authenticity. I think really leading from a place of being true to yourself and speaking your truth the way you speak it, and leading breathwork the way that you lead it, and not trying to be a carbon copy of someone else. I think that is not just in the online space, but even in person, more and more what people are looking for is that soul connection, is that human connection point. And by being more of yourself, by showing up in your sessions, online, in your business, whatever that looks like, as who you are, and letting people see that and allowing them in, like you said, the more that they will be magnetized to your work, and the more that those who resonate with you will find you. So I think that really is coming through as like a big theme. And I feel like the more that we try to copy other people's way of doing things, the more that we try to look a certain way so that we appear to be like another person or another practitioner, the less it's going to work. I think it's just there's too much noise especially in the online space. So yeah, I would say, you know what, like, do your thing, do it your way, show people your unique magic, and that is what is going to support just you, your business, your heart, and your clients the most.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was a Gary Vee talk the other day that I was on, and the future of AI is essentially they're going to be creating fake people, fake influencers, and the thing that is going to allow us to stand out in building our brands, because then people can build those out at scale, and you won't be able to tell if it's a real person or not unless you have that element of genuine authenticity, the way you speak, your ideas, your unique essence, the energetics behind it. And so I encourage anybody that's listening to this podcast that is in, the healing arts, show up for your communities, like continue to be authentic, show up for your brand, continue to create, because we're going into some wild territory in the next couple of years. I'm just going to call it out for sure.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's really interesting.
It's wild. Okay, so any final thoughts for our audience? If you had just one thing to say that's to somebody that is thinking about getting started with a breathwork practice, what would you tell them?
Just start. There's no better way to do it. I would say just start, find, if you want to work with a practitioner, do a little bit of homework. I mean, happy to have you reach out to me, but there are many practitioners in this space. But yeah, find yourself a practitioner, go to a session, give it a try, and just see where it leads you, because there's so many ways to work with your breath. And I guarantee you that there will be at least one that resonates with you. And there's really no better place to start than just to do it.
Well, thank you so much, Kat, for being on Aligned Impact podcast. I look forward to the next time our paths cross.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Summer.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Aligned Impact. I'm truly grateful to have you here in this growing community of leaders, innovators, and conscious change makers. Check the show notes for all the links and resources we mentioned today, and you can explore more of my work and programs over at FlowShala.com, or connect with me on social media at Summer Huntington and YouTube as well for behind the scenes movement inspiration and business tips. Stay tuned for more episodes of Aligned Impact that inspire you to lead with intention, get empowered, and create aligned impact in your life and your community.